The stars bent and twisted as the massive alien fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. 800 ships appeared in perfect formation, their dark hulls gleaming under the distant light of the sun. Larger than anything humanity had ever built, and their combined mass was enough to block out entire constellations. Fleet Commander Thane stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Worldbreaker, and watched the third planet of this small system grow larger on his screens. Another world to conquer, another species to crush. In 200 years of expansion across the galaxy, the Karathi Empire had never met a force that could stand against them. This backward planet called Earth would be no different. The commander was tall and broad, with gray skin marked by the ritual scars of his victories. His forearms moved gracefully as he operated the control panels, calling up data about this new target. The readings made him almost laugh. These humans still used nuclear weapons and crude metal ships. Their technology was so primitive that his scouts had needed special equipment just to detect it. Captain Lisa Park was having the worst day of her career. It was only getting started. She sat in the command center of the Orbital Defense Station Sentinel, staring at sensor readings that made no sense. The numbers were too big. The computer kept running the scans over and over, as if it could not believe what it was seeing. It again, she told her crew for the 5th time in 10 minutes. Mark Rivera, her intelligence officer, looked up from his console with pale skin and wide eyes. Captain, the readings are correct. 800 ships, minimum. The smallest ones are twice the size of our largest battleship. The big ones are... He stopped and swallowed hard. The big ones are the size of cities. Lisa felt her stomach drop. She had trained for this moment her whole life, but nothing could have prepared her for the reality of it. The alien fleet this size could destroy every ship humanity had ever built, and still have 700 vessels left over. She keyed her communicator to reach Earth Command. This is Captain Park on Sentinel. We have contact. Hostile fleet detected at system edge. Request immediate communication with Admiral Martinez. Response came back in seconds. Confirmed, Captain. The Admiral is standing by. On Earth, Admiral Rosa Martinez was already in the Situation Room deep beneath the Capitol. She had been expecting this call for months, ever since the deep space sensors had detected the approaching fleet. The room buzzed with activity as officers and scientists worked at dozens of screens, all showing the same impossible sight. The alien fleet was moving toward Earth at a steady pace, not hurrying but not slow either. They moved like they owned the galaxy, which Martinez supposed they did. Intelligence reports from the outer colonies painted a clear picture of the Karathi Empire. They arrived, demanded surrender, and destroyed anyone who refused. No species had ever successfully resisted them. Martinez was a small woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much war. She had fought in the colony rebellions, the asteroid mining wars, and a dozen smaller conflicts. But this was different. This was the survival of her entire species. How long do we have? She asked her staff. 72 hours until they reach Earth orbit, came the reply. Maybe less if they speed up. Thane reviewed the tactical data on the human military forces with growing amusement. They had perhaps 300 ships scattered across their system, most of them converted cargo vessels with basic weapons bolted on. Their orbital defenses consisted of missile platforms that would not even scratch Karathi's shields. It would hardly qualify as a battle. He activated the long-range communication system and sent the standard message to Earth. Every species received the same ultimatum. Translated into their primitive languages by the ship's computers, people of Earth, you are now within the territory of the Karathi Empire. Have one rotation of your planet to surrender unconditionally. Submit to imperial rule, and your species will be allowed to serve the Empire. Resist and you will be destroyed completely. There is no third option. The message reached Earth in minutes. In the command center, Admiral Martinez listened to the alien words with no expression on her face. Around her, younger officers looked sick with fear. The message was everything they had expected and nothing they wanted to hear. Send our reply, Martinez ordered. The communication officer hesitated. Ma'am, are you sure? Maybe we should try to negotiate by some time. Send our reply, Martinez repeated, her voice hard as steel. The message went out on all frequencies, broadcast to the alien fleet and every human colony in the system. It was short and simple. This is Admiral Rosa Martinez of the Earth Defense Force. Your ultimatum is rejected. Earth will not surrender. If you want our world, you will have to take it. Thane received the human response with surprise. In his long career, he had seen many species make brave speeches before their destruction. But there was something different about this message. The human admiral sounded calm, almost confident. Did these primitives really think they could fight the Korathi Empire? He gave orders for the fleet to maintain course and speed, let the humans see their doom approaching slowly. Fear often accomplished what weapons could not. By the time his ships reached Earth, the humans would be begging to surrender. But as the hours passed, something strange happened. Instead of panicking, the humans began to move with purpose. Their scattered ships started forming into battle. Groups. Their orbital stations activated systems that the Korathi sensors had not detected before. Most puzzling of all, the humans began broadcasting messages throughout their system. Not calls for help or desperate pleas, but calm military orders. Lisa Park coordinated the evacuation of civilian stations while preparing her own command for battle. She knew they could not win, but that was not the point anymore. Every minute they could delay the aliens, every ship they could damage. Every piece of information they could gather might help the colonies that would come after Earth was gone. Mark. Rivera worked frantically at his station, recording every detail about the alien ships. Their formation patterns, their engine signatures, their communication frequencies. All of it went into the data banks that would be transmitted to the outer colonies before the end came. Deep in the command bunker on Earth, Admiral Martinez watched the alien fleet grow larger on her screens. In 60 hours, they would be in Earth orbit. In 72 hours, the battle for humanity's survival would begin. She allowed herself one moment of fear, then pushed it aside. There was too much work to do. The Korathi Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds and destroyed dozens of species. They had never lost a battle or failed to take a target. Their fleet was invincible, their technology supreme, their victory certain. They had no idea what was waiting for them. The Korathi fleet moved through the solar system like a dark cloud, passing the outer planets with casual ease. Fleet Commander Thane watched his screens with satisfaction as his ships maintained perfect formation. The humans had been silent. For 24 hours now, which usually meant they were preparing to surrender. Most species realized the hopelessness of their situation once they saw the true size of the Imperial fleet. But these humans continued to surprise him. Instead of gathering their ships around their homeworld for a desperate last stand, they had spread them throughout the system. Small groups of human vessels moved between the asteroid belt and the gas giants, following patterns that made no sense to Korathi tactical doctrine, looked almost random, which was probably exactly what it was. Primitive species rarely understood proper military strategy. Thane decided it was time for a demonstration. Humans needed to understand what they were facing. He selected his target carefully, a mining station orbiting the dwarf planet the humans called Ceres. It was far enough from Earth to avoid any immediate retaliation, but close enough that every human sensor would record what happened next. Destroyer. Cleaver, break formation and eliminate the mining station, Thane ordered. Make it visible. I want the humans to see what our weapons can do. The Cleaver was one of the smaller ships in the fleet, barely 300 meters long. But it mounted plasma cannons that could crack a moon in half. Captain Voss, the destroyer's commander, acknowledged the order and moved his ship toward the target. The human mining station was a simple structure. It's mostly automated equipment designed to extract metals from the asteroid belt. 200 people worked there, families who had spent their lives in the cold darkness between worlds. The Korathi destroyer appeared on their sensors. They knew exactly what was about to happen. Station Commander Beth Cole had served in the Earth Defense Force for 15 years before taking this job. She activated the emergency broadcast and spoke clearly into her communicator. This is Ceres Mining Station 1. Korathi destroyer approaching. All hands begin emergency evacuation. This is not a drill. Evacuation pods launched just as The cleaver opened fire. Brilliant beams of superheated plasma tore through the station's hull like paper, melting metal and vaporizing atmosphere in seconds. The entire structure came apart in a ball of fire that lit up the darkness for millions of kilometers. Captain Voss watched the destruction with professional satisfaction. The demonstration was perfect, visible to every human sensor in the system. Now the primitives would understand the futility of resistance. He prepared to return to formation when his sensor officer made a disturbing report. "Captain, the evacuation was complete." No life signs detected in the wreckage. Voss frowned. Most species panicked when the Karathi appeared, making evacuation slow and incomplete. The fact that these humans had managed to evacuate an entire station in the few minutes between the destroyer's approach and the attack was unusual. It suggested better training and discipline than expected from such a primitive species. On Earth, Admiral Martinez watched the destruction of Ceres Station with no expression on her face. Around her, the command staff waited for her reaction. The loss of the station was tragic, but not unexpected. What mattered was that every person on Ceres had escaped alive, and the Karathi had just revealed crucial information about their weapons and tactics. Analysis, Martinez ordered. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the fleet's chief scientist, spoke up from her console. "Plasma-based energy weapons, consistent with our intelligence reports. Power output matches our estimates. Targeting systems appear to be standard military grade. Nothing exceptional." "Good," Martinez said. "Signal the fleet. Execute Plan Alpha." Throughout the solar system, human ships began to move. But instead of retreating toward Earth as any sane military force would do, they advanced toward the Karathi fleet. A suicide mission, a desperate attempt to inflict some damage before inevitable defeat. At least, that was what it looked like. Captain Lisa Park commanded a battle group of 12 ships near Jupiter's moons. Her flagship was the Defiance, a heavy cruiser that had been built in the orbital shipyards only 2 years earlier. Her flew 11 smaller vessels, destroyers, and frigates that looked pitifully small compared to the approaching alien armada. "All ships, this is Captain Park. Remember your training, stay in formation, and follow my lead. Today we show these aliens what humans are made of." The human battle group accelerated toward the Karathi advance guard, a formation of 30 enemy ships led by a massive battle cruiser. The size difference was ridiculous. The Karathi battle cruiser alone outmassed Park's entire force by a factor of 10. But the humans came on anyway, their ships pushing their engines to maximum power. Fleet Commander Thane watched the approaching human ships with amusement. "Look at them," he said to his bridge crew. "They actually think they can fight us. This should be over quickly." The first exchange of fire confirmed everything Thane believed about human inferiority. Karathi energy weapons tore through human shields like they were not even there. Human return fire bounced harmlessly off Karathi deflector screens. Within minutes, 3 human ships were drifting hulks, their hulls cracked open in bleeding atmosphere. But something was wrong. Thane had expected the humans to break and run after the first losses, as most species did. Instead, they pressed their attack with suicidal determination. More strange still, the casualty reports from the destroyed human ships were far lower than they should have been. Emergency pods were launching from vessels that had not yet been hit, as if the crews were abandoning ship before taking damage. Captain Park watched 2 more of her ships take critical hits, their hulls glowing red, from Karathi plasma strikes. But the evacuation pods were away, carrying most of the crews to safety. The ships themselves were expendable. What mattered was the data they were collecting. "Mark, are you getting this?" she asked her intelligence officer. Mark Rivera nodded, grimly, his hands flying over his console as he recorded every detail of the Karathi weapons and tactics. Shield frequencies, firing patterns, power distribution, targeting algorithms. All of it went into the computer banks that would survive, even if the ships did not. "Got it all, Captain?" "Send it," Park ordered. The data burst went out at light speed, carrying precious intelligence to every human ship and station in the system. Karathi intercepted the transmission, but could not decode it. Human encryption was surprisingly sophisticated for such a primitive species. The battle continued for 2 hours, with human ships fighting and dying against impossible odds, but they fought with a coordination and tactical awareness that impressed even their enemies. Every human ship that died took at least one Korathi vessel with it, something that should have been impossible given the technology gap. When the last human ship finally exploded, Fleet Commander Thane found himself deeply troubled. His forces had won easily, as expected, but the humans had inflicted far more damage than they should have been able to, and their behavior during the battle made no sense. They had fought like they were studying his fleet rather than trying to defeat it. Most disturbing of all, the human casualty count was impossibly low. Ships that had been completely destroyed showed minimal life signs lost. It was as if the humans had known exactly when to evacuate, as if they had never intended to win the battle at all. Thane shook his head, gave orders to continue toward Earth. These humans were strange, but they were still primitive. His fleet had lost perhaps 20 ships out of 800. The next battle would be the last one. He had no idea how wrong he was. The Korathi fleet approached Earth with the confidence of conquerors who had never known defeat. Fleet Commander Thane stood on his bridge, watching the blue and green planet grow larger on his screens. In just 6 hours, his ships would be in orbit around the human homeworld, and this war would be over. The humans had fought bravely in their foolish attack near Jupiter, but bravery meant nothing against superior technology and overwhelming numbers. Earth looked peaceful from this distance. Wrapped in white clouds with its single moon hanging nearby like a silver coin, Thane had destroyed hundreds of worlds just like this one. Some had been beautiful, some had been ugly, but they had all fallen the same way. A few orbital bombardments, the destruction of major population centers, and the surviving inhabitants always surrendered quickly enough. But as his fleet drew closer to Earth, Thane began to notice things that seemed wrong. The planet's orbital space was crowded with satellites and space stations, far more than any primitive species should have been able to build. Long-range sensors detected thousands of objects orbiting the world, from tiny communication satellites to massive industrial platforms. It was almost as if the humans had turned their entire orbital region into a city. Admiral Martinez sat in her command bunker deep beneath the surface of Earth, watching the alien fleet approach on a dozen different screens. Around her, the command center buzzed with quiet activity as officers and technicians made final preparations for what was about to happen. She had waited 50 years for this moment, ever since humanity had first detected the Korathi expansion across the galaxy. Dr. Vasquez, are all systems ready?
Idolina!
Vasquez looked up from her console, her face calm despite the magnitude of what they were about to attempt. Defensive grids are online and standing by. Project Helios is charged and ready. The asteroid platforms are in position. We can begin on your order, Admiral. Admiral Martinez nodded and opened a communication channel to every human ship and station in the solar system. This is Admiral Martinez to all forces. The trap is set. Execute Order Omega. Show them what we really are. The transformation began slowly, so gradually that the Korathi sensors barely detected it at first. What had appeared to be simple communication. Satellites suddenly unfolded, revealing weapon systems that had been hidden inside innocent-looking shells. Industrial platforms that seemed designed for manufacturing opened up to show massive railgun installations that had been disguised as mining equipment throughout the asteroid belt. What the Korathi had assumed were automated mining operations revealed their true nature. The asteroids themselves had been hollowed out and filled with electromagnetic launchers capable of firing projectiles at incredible speeds. Hundreds of these hidden fortresses came online at once, their targeting systems locking onto the approaching enemy fleet. Captain Lisa Park had survived the battle near Jupiter by evacuating to an escape pod just before her ship was destroyed. Now, she commanded a new vessel, the Retribution, from a position near Earth's moon. Around her, the lunar surface was opening up like a flower, revealing weapon systems that had been buried beneath fake mining facilities for decades. All lunar batteries report ready, her weapons officer announced. We have targeting solutions on the enemy flagship and primary escorts. Park smiled grimly. The Karathi had no idea what was about to hit them. Hold fire until the Admiral gives the word. Let them get a little closer. Fleet Commander Thane was beginning to feel the first stirrings of unease as his sensors detected the changes happening throughout the human system. What he had thought were primitive mining operations were revealing themselves to be something else entirely. His intelligence officers worked frantically to analyze the new data, but the readings made no sense. Commander, his chief sensor operator, reported, "We are detecting massive energy buildups throughout the system. The humans appear to have weapon systems we did not know about." Thane studied the tactical display with growing concern. Red warning symbols were appearing everywhere, marking potential threats that had not existed moments before. It was impossible. His scouts had surveyed this system thoroughly. There had been no sign of major defensive installations. "How could we have missed this?" he demanded. His intelligence chief, a veteran of dozens of conquests, looked confused and frightened. "Sir, our scans showed only primitive orbital facilities. Communications satellites, mining platforms, research stations. Nothing that could threaten the fleet." "Then what are we looking at now?" Before anyone could answer, the humans struck. The attack came from every direction at once, a coordinated assault that had clearly been planned for years. Tungsten rods, fired from asteroid platforms at nearly the speed of light, slammed into Korathi ships, before their sensors could even detect the incoming projectiles. The kinetic energy was devastating. Punching through advanced alien shields as if they did not exist, Dr. Elena Vasquez activated the crown jewel of humanity's secret defense network. Project Helios had taken 30 years to build, a ring of mirror. Satellites positioned around the sun that could focus stellar energy into concentrated beams. The first beam lanced across space and struck a Karathi battlecruiser, vaporizing the massive ship in seconds. The alien fleet reeled under the unexpected assault. Ships that had seemed invincible moments before were being torn apart by weapons that should not have existed. Thane watched in horror as his tactical display filled with red symbols marking destroyed vessels. In the first 5 minutes of combat, he lost more ships than in the previous 10 years of conquest. "Return fire!" he screamed. "All ships engage." The enemy. But the Korathi found themselves fighting an enemy they could not see. The human weapons were hidden inside asteroids, buried beneath planetary surfaces, disguised as harmless space debris. Every time the aliens thought they had found a target, it turned out to be another decoy, while the real weapons fired from somewhere else. Captain Maria Santos led a squadron of small human fighters that swarmed around the larger Korathi vessels like angry insects. Her ship looked tiny and harmless next to the alien dreadnoughts, but appearances were deceiving. The fighter carried a quantum torpedo that could phase through enemy shields and detonate inside their hulls. "This is for Ceres Station," she whispered. As she launched her weapon at the destroyer that had destroyed the mining facility, the torpedo passed through the alien ship's shields like they were not there, and exploded deep inside the vessel's engine room. The destroyer came apart from the inside out, its hull splitting like a ripe fruit, all across the battlefield. Similar scenes played out as humanity revealed the true extent of their preparations. Weapons that had been disguised as civilian infrastructure opened fire with devastating effect. Defense systems that had been hidden for decades activated simultaneously, turning Earth's orbital space into a killing field. Fleet Commander Thane realized with growing terror that his fleet had flown straight into a trap that had been decades in the making. Humans had not just prepared for war, they had prepared specifically for war against the Korathi Empire. Every weapon system seemed designed to counter Korathi technology. Every tactic seemed calculated to exploit weaknesses. In Imperial doctrine, how is this possible? He demanded of his staff. How could they know so much about our capabilities? His communications officer looked up from her station with wide eyes. "Sir, I am detecting transmissions between human forces. They are using our own tactical frequencies. They know our command codes, our shield harmonics, our weapon signatures. It is as if they have been studying us for years." The horrible truth began to dawn on Thane. Every Karathi victory, every conquered world, every scout ship that had reported back to the Empire had been feeding intelligence to the humans. Somehow, impossibly, these primitive people had been watching, and learning and preparing for this moment for far longer than anyone had imagined. His invincible fleet was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that knew everything about them, while they knew almost nothing in return. In his long career, Fleet Commander Thane understood what it felt like to be completely outmatched. The battle raged across the solar system as humanity's hidden weapons continued their devastating assault on the Karathi fleet. Fleet Commander Thane watched his tactical display in growing horror as more red symbols appeared, each one marking another destroyed ship. His invincible armada was being torn apart by weapons that seemed to appear from nowhere and strike from impossible angles. Damage report. Thane shouted over the noise of his bridge crew working frantically at their stations. 230 ships destroyed or disabled, his tactical officer reported, his voice shaking. Enemy fire is coming from every direction. We cannot identify the source of their weapons. Thane could not believe what he was hearing. In less than an hour of combat, he had lost more ships than in decades of conquest. The humans were not just fighting back, they were winning. It was impossible, but the evidence was right there on his screens. Deep in Earth's command bunker, Admiral Martinez coordinated the defense with calm precision. She had spent 30 years planning for this moment, and everything was going exactly as she had hoped. Around her, officers called out, "Status reports as humanity's secret weapons systematically dismantled the alien fleet." "Helios array firing again," Dr. Vasquez announced. "Target is the enemy flagship's escort group." On the main screen, Martinez watched as concentrated sunlight lanced across space and struck 3 Karathi battlecruisers. The ships simply vanished, vaporized by focused stellar energy that no shield could deflect. The weapon had taken decades to build and position, but it was worth every year of effort. "Asteroid platforms report ammunition at 60%, another officer called out. "Targeting the enemy's second wave formations." Martinez nodded. The tungsten rod launchers hidden throughout the asteroid belt were performing better than expected. The kinetic projectiles traveled so fast that the aliens had no time to react, and their shields were useless against solid matter moving at such incredible speeds. Engineer Paul Kim supervised the Helios firing sequence from the solar collection station hidden behind Mercury. The massive array of mirrors and focusing lenses had been disguised as a scientific research facility for 20 years. Now, it was humanity's most powerful weapon, capable of channeling the sun's energy into beams that could destroy anything in space. "Next target acquired," Kim announced to his team. "Karathi command ship bearing 27 Mark IV. Charging sequence initiated." The mirrors moved with mechanical precision, aligning themselves to focus solar radiation into a coherent beam. The energy buildup was tremendous, enough to power an entire city for a year. But instead of electricity, it became a weapon of unimaginable destruction. Captain Maria Santos led another wave of fighter attacks against the alien capital ships, her small craft weaving between massive enemy vessels like a bird flying through a forest. Her squadron carried the new quantum torpedoes, weapons that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously and could pass through any known shield technology. "Target the engine sections," she ordered her pilots. "Remember, we want to disable, not just destroy. Dead ships tell no tales." The human fighters swarmed around a Karathi dreadnought, their weapons phasing through the alien ship's defenses and exploding inside critical systems. The massive vessel shuddered and began to drift as its engines failed. Around it, other ships suffered similar fates as humanity's impossible weapons found their marks. Fleet. Commander Thane realized that his fleet was not just losing, it was being systematically taken apart by an enemy that understood Karathi technology better than he did. Every weakness in Imperial ship design was being exploited. Every flaw in their tactics was being used against them. "How are they doing this?" he demanded of his intelligence officers. "How do they know exactly where to hit us?" His chief analyst looked up from her console with fear in her eyes. "Commander, I have been reviewing our communications logs. The humans are using our own tactical frequencies to coordinate their attacks. They know our shield harmonics, our weapon signatures, even our command protocols." It is as if they have been inside our computer systems for years. The terrible truth was even worse than that. Every scout ship that had ever approached human space, every probe that had gathered intelligence on Earth, every battle the Karathi had fought in nearby systems had been carefully monitored by human observers. For 50 years, humanity had been watching and learning. Preparing for this exact moment, Dr. Alina Vasquez activated another hidden weapon system. This one disguised as a deep space communications array. The massive dish had actually been built to generate focused electromagnetic pulses that could disable alien electronics. As the pulse fired, an entire squadron of Karathi fighters simply stopped working, their pilots helpless as their ships drifted powerless through space. EMP cannon successful, she reported to Admiral Martinez. Enemy fighter squadron neutralized without destruction. Martinez smiled grimly. The humans were not just trying to win this battle, they were trying to capture as many alien ships as possible. Every vessel they took intact would provide more intelligence about Karathi technology and tactics. Knowledge that would be very useful when dealing with the rest of the alien empire, Captain. Lisa Park commanded the lunar defense batteries from her position inside the moon's hidden command center. The weapons around her had been carved out of solid rock and disguised as mining equipment for decades. Now they revealed their true purpose as massive railguns that could fire projectiles anywhere in the solar system. Battery 7, target the enemy formation at grid reference Alpha 9, she ordered. Full spread, maximum velocity. The lunar surface erupted as dozens of hidden weapons fired simultaneously. Tungsten rods the size of telephone poles streaked across space at incredible speeds, their kinetic energy sufficient to crack open the largest alien ships. The Karathi fleet found itself under attack from Earth's own moon, a possibility they had never even considered. As the battle continued, the true scope of humanity's preparations became clear. Every major body in the solar system had been turned into a weapon. Mars housed massive manufacturing facilities that produced ammunition for the hidden guns. The moons of Jupiter and Saturn contained fuel depots and repair stations for human ships. Even the sun itself had been weaponized through the Helios array. But the most devastating weapon of all was information. The humans knew everything about Karathi ships, weapons, tactics, and command structure. They had studied every battle the aliens had ever fought, analyzed every piece of technology they had ever used, and prepared specific countermeasures for every possible situation. Fleet Commander Thane watched helplessly as his mighty armada was reduced to scattered groups of damaged ships. His communications were being jammed by human transmitters. His sensors were being blinded by electromagnetic interference. His weapons were being neutralized by defense systems he had never seen before. Sir, his tactical officer reported, we have lost over half the fleet. Remaining ships are scattered and many are badly damaged. We cannot maintain formation. Thane stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The Iron Tide, the most powerful military force in known space, had been stopped cold by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Worse than stopped, they were being systematically destroyed by an enemy that had turned warfare itself into a science. For the first time in his long career, Fleet Commander Thane began to consider the possibility that the Karathi Empire might not be invincible after all. These humans had shown him something he had never seen before, an enemy that was not just brave or lucky, but genuinely superior in planning, preparation, and execution. The battle was far from over, but already he knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Fleet Commander Thane stood alone on his bridge, surrounded by the wreckage of his shattered fleet. Of the 800 ships that had entered the solar system with such confidence, fewer than 200 remained operational. The rest were either destroyed completely or drifting powerless through space. Their crews captured by human boarding parties. The Worldbreaker itself was badly damaged, its hull cracked in 3 places, and its main engines offline. Emergency power kept the life support systems running, but the mighty dreadnought was helpless. Around it, the remnants of the once invincible Iron Tide huddled together like frightened animals, waiting for the next human attack. But the attack did not come. Instead, the human ships formed a perfect sphere around the surviving Karathi vessels, their weapons trained inward but not firing. It was a classic encirclement maneuver, executed with precision that would have impressed the best. Karathi tacticians. The humans were clearly in complete control of the battlefield, Admiral. Martinez opened a communication channel to the enemy flagship, her image appearing on every screen in the Karathi fleet. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes, but her voice carried the authority of absolute victory. "Fleet Commander Thane," she said calmly. "I am Admiral Rosa Martinez of the Earth Defense Force. Your fleet is surrounded and outgunned. I offer you one chance to surrender unconditionally. You have 60 seconds to decide." Thane stared at the human admiral with a mixture of rage and disbelief. No Karathi commander had ever surrendered in battle. The very idea was unthinkable. But as he looked around his bridge at the faces of his surviving crew, he saw something he had never seen before in Karathi eyes: fear. "How?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "How did you know? How did you prepare for this?" Martinez studied the alien commander for a long moment before answering. "Dr. Vasquez, bring up the timeline." Lena Vasquez appeared on the communication screen beside the admiral, her hands moving over a control panel. Behind her, a massive display showed a star chart of the local galaxy with dates and locations marked in glowing symbols. "We detected your empire's expansion 53 years ago," Dr. Vasquez explained in the calm tone of a scientist delivering a lecture. "Your conquest of the Altair system was visible to our deep space telescopes. We watched you destroy the Centauri colonies. We monitored your communications during the siege of Wolf 359. Thane felt his blood turn cold. The humans had been watching the Karathi Empire for over half a century, studying every battle, analyzing every tactic, learning from every victory. They had turned the Empire's own success against itself. "Every scout ship you sent to observe, our system was allowed to gather exactly the information we wanted you to have," Martinez continued. "Every probe that returned to your fleet carried data we had carefully prepared. You thought you were studying us, but we were studying you." The full scope of the human deception began to dawn on Thane. The primitive technology his scouts had detected was the weak defenses. The scattered military forces, all of it, had been an elaborate lie designed to lure the Karathi fleet into a trap. The humans had spent decades building their hidden weapons while pretending to be helpless. "Your 47 seconds are up," Martinez said. "What is your decision?" Thane looked around his bridge one more time. His officers waited for his command, but he could see in their faces that they already knew what his answer would be. Iron Tide was finished. The Karathi Empire had met an enemy it could not defeat. "I surrender," he said quietly. "The fleet is yours." The words felt like poison in his mouth, but there was no alternative. To continue fighting would only result in the complete destruction of his remaining ships and the death of thousands more Karathi warriors. At least surrender offered the possibility that some of his people might survive. Throughout the solar system, surviving Karathi vessels powered down their weapons and prepared to be boarded by human forces. It was the first surrender in the Empire's 200-year history. It would not be the last. Captain Lisa Park led the boarding party that took control of the Worldbreaker. She walked through the corridors of the massive ship with professional interest, noting the advanced technology and sophisticated design. The Karathi had built impressive vessels, but they had made one critical mistake. They had become predictable, secure. "The bridge and engineering sections," she ordered her troops. "Take the command staff into custody, but treat them well.
Nice.
They are prisoners of war, not criminals." Dr. Elena Vasquez accompanied the boarding teams, her scientific curiosity overcoming any fear she might have felt. The Karathi ships contained technology that was centuries ahead of anything humanity possessed. But technology alone had not been enough to win the battle. "Admiral," she reported over her communicator, "preliminary analysis confirms our intelligence estimates. The aliens use standard Imperial design principles throughout their fleet. It's very advanced, but also very uniform. Once you understand the pattern, you can predict everything they will do." That was the key to humanity's victory. The Karathi Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds using the same tactics, the same ship designs, the same strategic doctrines. They had become so successful that they had stopped innovating, stopped adapting. They had become victims of their own success. Admiral Martinez stood in her command center, watching as human ships took control of the captured Korathi vessels. Around her, the staff worked to process the intelligence windfall that the alien fleet represented. Every ship was a treasure trove of information about the Empire's technology, military capabilities, and strategic plans. Communications, open a channel to all human colonies and outposts, Martinez ordered. It is time to send a message to the galaxy. The transmission went out on every frequency, broadcast to every corner of known space where humans might be listening. But more importantly, it was sent to every world that had ever been threatened by the Korathi Empire. "This is Admiral Rosa Martinez of the Earth Defense Force," she announced. "The Korathi fleet, known as the Iron Tide, has been defeated and captured. Their invasion of our system has failed completely. We are transmitting technical data on Korathi ships and weapons to all free peoples of the galaxy. The Empire is not invincible. They can be stopped." The message would take years to reach the distant colonies, but when it did, it would change everything. Species that had lived in terror of the Korathi Empire would learn that the seemingly unstoppable conquerors could be defeated. The technical data would allow them to build their own defenses, to prepare their own traps. Fleet Commander Thane sat in a holding cell aboard a human ship, staring out a small window at the stars. His empire would never be the same. The defeat of the Iron Tide would send shockwaves throughout Korathi space, encouraging rebellion on conquered worlds and inspiring resistance among species that had not yet been subdued. But perhaps most frightening of all was the realization that humanity represented something entirely new in the galaxy. They were not just another species to be conquered or destroyed. They were something the Korathi Empire had never encountered before, an enemy that was genuinely superior in intelligence, planning, and strategic thinking. The humans had not won through superior technology or greater numbers. They had won by being smarter, more patient, and more thorough than their enemies. They had turned warfare itself into a science, studying their opponents with the same dedication that others might study mathematics or physics. As Thane watched Earth grow smaller in the distance, he understood that his capture was just the beginning. The humans would study his ships, interrogate his officers, and learn everything there was to know about the Korathi Empire. And then they would use that knowledge to help others resist imperial expansion. The age of Korathi dominance was ending, and the age of human influence was just beginning. The galaxy would never be the same.